Hello, my name is Christian, and I'm here today with Liam, and today we're doing an interview. Hello, Liam.
Hey,
On to our first question, what makes you the happiest?
although this may kind of seem a bit narrow-minded, I think like success or accomplishment makes me the happiest, especially when what I'm achieving has taken a long time for me to do and has been like particularly challenging to me. I think it's the feeling of relaxing of after I completed those goals that I set out for myself.
How hard are these goals that you set up for yourself? Are they usually long, short-term goals? What are they?
I'll say they come usually a mix of both. Like the funny thing is, most of my long-term goals are usually like short-term goals that became long-term because I never finished them.
Uh, so you like to procrastinate things too, like I do, I see.
Yeah.
Alright. Well, procrastination is one of my, it's a fear of mine that I will usually like not get my work done, so that's a small fear of mine. But what's your biggest fear?
Oh, my biggest fear is probably mm, run. I think it's running out of time. Like in a broader sense, you could say that maybe I'm scared of death or conclusions. I think it's just when I know that I'm not in control of my situation, and I fear that my actions will be fruitless in the end. It's when like I realize my bounds and limits may stop me from reaching my objective, possibly even at the last moment.
Sounds like procrastination again. So it seems you share the same fear in procrastinating. Do you procrastinate on things, or do you have a set schedule for everything you do? And for these limits that you say you have, do you have you pushed the limits, found out how far you can go?
I think I agree with you. I think procrastination is like one of my fatal flaws. But I think I always try to attempt to push my limits, but I feel that if I push my limits too much, then I can feel exhausted and I can't really do it.
Burnout. Yeah, you should. When you're dealing with like just constantly pushing, you should probably take a break because burnout is pretty bad to deal with. But what bothers you the most about yourself?
I think what bothers me the most about myself are my actions, more specifically like my past actions. Like, given some time to ruminate on my actions, I realized that I could have taken a far better option, like making a better decision or just staying true to my beliefs. My brain hardly ever lets me forget these incidents, and whenever a similar situation pops up, I always remember it.
Sound like one of those people who like once you have that embarrassing moment, you can't live it down. Would you say you learned from these experiences?
Well, I mean, I try my best to learn, but I will say that I do repeat my mistakes, and it only makes the embarrassment worse. Like sometimes I would eventually learn in the end, but I still wonder whether I made the right choice that time, or will I be like embarrassed about that choice later on.
Uh, we all have our little embarrassing moments, but I have a question. Where do you get the most of your information? Do you use the internet? Use your phone? What do you use? Which of these is like the most important?
Well, I think usually use the information for most of my information. And luckily for me, that information is usually a click away. Sometimes I read or listen to the news, but I haven't really watched the TV for a few years. Access to internet and technology is pretty important to me, as most of my life revolves around it. I may feel at a loss if I'm unable to procure that information I've been searching for. Sometimes I even can't sleep, searching for an answer that I may not be able to get.
Sounds like the internet's a major part of your life. What would you do if you could no longer access the internet?
Or to say the truth, I'd probably have to learn to deal with it. Although I wouldn't say I've been like completely devoid of the internet before, I would say that in those times I just feel lost for a few days before finally adjusting to my new environment.
Overall adjusting here due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So
Yeah,
speaking of adjustment
luckily
that we had to,
that's even more internet, I guess.
but speaking of adjustment that we had to make, for example, school. What do you most like about school? What's your favorite subject? What's your least favorite? Do you think school is important? And do you think go to college?
I think what I like the most about school is the development I gain from it. Whether it be like learning how to exercise properly, learning how to apply quadratic approximation, or even having a stronger voice. They all help me improve myself. I think my favorite subject is math because it challenges me, but I do like that I'll be able to solve most problems if you just give me enough time. But
Uh,
I mean like any problem, but just as long as you just have enough time to do it, I can eventually somehow find out. I
mhm.
don't really have a least favorite subject though. Back in elementary school, I'd probably say maybe language arts or social studies because my grades would always be bad for those classes. But I think now I understand that each class is more than just a grade. Like all of my classes teach me important lessons that continually help me develop, both academic and mentally, and maybe even physically and socially. I do intend to go to college, and I hope that I get enough aid so that my parents won't have to exhaust their savings. I will attempt to contribute by finding a part-time job or an internship, but the future is still a bit uncertain for me.
Well, do you feel like you'd be able to use what you learned in school in the real world? And I don't think like a person would typically go around their daily life using the quadratic equation, finding parabolas.
Well, I mean that I think that most of what I learned in school is like foundation for the real world. The things I pursue in the real world will often be more specific to me, and things that probably should be more up to me to learn. On the quadratic approximation part, I think I can use the formula to help me with my mental math, which can help me with a lot of daily life stuff.
Uh, well, think seeing like you really enjoy math, or and you use a quadratic approximation a lot. Do you think you're gonna become something that deals in the math field when you grow up? Like as you look ahead, what do you think you'll become?
Uh, I think I hope to work as a programmer or something in a similar field. From a young age, the idea has always fascinated me and provided me with a lot of growth and struggle. Something I always think about is the extent of which the programming world has grown throughout my life. Most of the languages I've learned or programs I've made have been made many, many years before I did. Like, will I have to spend another 20 years of studying to get to the level where programming is today?
Well, what type of programmer do you want to be? And do you want to create do you want to create games for people to play, or like new robots and devices that make life easier?
Well,
Like,
although the idea of being like a game programmer has entertained me before, I think I'd rather work with developing software or maintaining programs. Like whether or not I want to pursue AI though, I think it would probably depend on the college I go to.
I know off topic. Do you think AI will take over the world?
Uh,
William,
do you want the possibility or just
what is your opinion? Do you think AI will take over? End up like Terminator?
that's a good question. Let's say maybe.
Alright, so back to the main focus interviews. But speaking of Terminator taking over the world, which should be a pretty big problem. What are the biggest problems in the world you would like to fix?
Well, I think Terminator taking over the world is a bit of a bigger problem than the problems I'm thinking of. But I think the biggest problem in the world that I'd probably like to fix is pollution. I just general pollution, pollution in the air, pollution in the sea, pollution in the land, kind of surrounds us, you know. I do
Mhm.
understand that most solutions to these issues are usually unrealistic and unconventional for the world in its current state. I've come to terms with that fact a long time ago. That I probably won't be able to do anything about it. However, I think I do try to do little things to help contribute less to it, and I sometimes try to convince others to do the same.
Well, do you think that we still have a chance to fix this world? Because global warming has been a thing for decades, and it hasn't gotten any better. In fact, it took COVID, like this entire epidemic, with economies crashing all over the world for carbon emissions to go down.
Well, with my limited knowledge, I can pessimistically believe that people probably won't be able to fix the world, at least not to its original state. However, I believe that the human race will still strive to improve it. I doubt the issues that I talk about will probably be solved, maybe not even my lifetime, but I think it's still a challenge that we all have to face.
Uh, well, I hope we all live to see the tales of a green Earth with no pollution. And with that, thank you for your time.
And thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me.